Good afternoon, fellow alien enthusiasts, and welcome to another edition of the Angry Alien Bulletin. Today we're once again diving into the mystery of 3I Atlas, examining a series of recently released photographs. I'll walk you through what you're seeing in these images and point out the striking anomalies that NASA consistently avoids addressing. For reasons I still can't quite understand, NASA often overlooks details that are incredibly obvious. Researchers like Avi Loeb openly discuss these oddities. Yet NASA's own presentations, especially their latest Hubble release, which many criticized for its poor quality, actually reveal something quite remarkable about 3I Atlas when viewed carefully. We'll take some time to look through these photos, which will continue to improve as 3I Atlas approaches its closest pass to Earth on the 19th. Before we get into that, I want to mention my favorite classic science fiction author, H.G. Wells. I admire him largely because of his grounded, some might say, cynical view of human civilization. He never romanticized humanity, instead he emphasized that there's nothing inherently special or immortal about us. At some point, our species, like most species that have ever existed, is destined for extinction. The War of the Worlds confronts us with a more advanced civilization, capable of crushing humanity's strongest defenses within weeks. But even more compelling is Wells's vision of the far future in The Time Machine. No film adaptation has ever truly captured the bleakness and strangeness he described. The 1960 movie came close, but its Eloi was still too human-like, complete with a damsel in distress storyline centered around Weena. In the novel, humanity has evolved so dramatically that the Eloi no longer fully resemble humans. The protagonist is briefly attracted to Weena, but quickly dismisses the idea. It feels inappropriate to romanticize a being that isn't truly human. What is even more striking is the book's ending. Spoiler alert. Wells describes the Earth's distant future. The human species long gone, replaced by monstrous crab-like creatures under a swollen, dying sun. The Earth is reduced to a barren wasteland with only the faintest hint of breathable air. No trace of humanity remains. This scenario aligns with what is likely to become of our own species, unless we evolve into a multi-planetary and eventually multi-stellar civilization. And that assumes we don't wipe ourselves out long before our sun does. Over 90% of all species that ever lived have gone extinct. Statistically, we are on the same path. The belief that humanity is uniquely special often blinds us to this reality and makes it difficult for some to accept the possibility of civilizations far older, more advanced, and more capable than our own. Civilizations that may have been exploring the cosmos for millions of years, with technologies beyond our imagination. Mainstream science generally dismisses ideas like these. Although scientists often claim they are open to such possibilities, in practice they aren't. They insist that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence so difficult to obtain that it becomes almost unattainable. Because of this, it will likely remain extremely challenging to persuade the scientific community that we've discovered anything resembling a technological object created by another civilization, whether passing through our solar system or even our atmosphere. This human-centered bias, in my view, is precisely why scientists, the media, and others refuse to acknowledge the anomalies we've observed from 3I Atlas as potential signs of advanced engineering. Yet many of these anomalies seem to strongly suggest a technosignature. We're going to revisit several of them as we examine this new set of photographs, so sit back, relax, and get ready for more 3I Atlas. Perhaps the most striking image I'll show today comes from Michael Jorga. When compared with an ordinary comet, such as Comet Lemon, shown in the upper right, you'll notice some similarities. Both display two tails, a dust tail and an ion tail, each shaped by the solar wind. But the differences are dramatic. Comet Lemon lacks the striking anti-tail, the long lance stretching toward the sun in direct opposition to the solar wind. You can search every comet image online or in any archive, and you won't find anything like this, unless it's an optical illusion anti-tail. Such illusions occur when Earth crosses a comet's orbit, and we see its past position relative to its present tail. The coma may appear centered between them, giving the false impression of a sunward tail. But that is not what is happening with 3I Atlas. This object clearly possesses a genuine anti-tail pointing straight at the sun. rotational gradient maps of the recent Hubble photo images most people haven't seen, since the public has mainly viewed the basic visual version confirm this. With a resolution of 0.04 arc-seconds per pixel, these are the most detailed images of 3I Atlas to date. They reveal two jets and a distinct anti-tail extending more than 60,000 kilometers 5 Earth diameters toward the Sun. The earlier Hubble photo from July also displayed a sunward anti-tail. During perihelion, the anti-tail even appeared to reverse direction relative to Atlas's motion, consistently aiming toward the Sun, no matter where the object was headed. This behavior is unheard of in normal comets and demands an explanation. Since we're on the topic of the Hubble images, let's examine the standard visual one as well. This close-up of the coma is actually far better than many critics are suggesting. The nucleus is more clearly resolved than in previous photos, and the glowing, teardrop-shaped halo once again extends toward the Sun, something that absolutely should not be occurring. To illustrate this, here's the standard diagram showing how a comet's halo is expected to behave. The teardrop shape should point away from the Sun, pushed back by the immense force of the solar wind, which drives dust, gas, and other material outward from any normal comet. Instead of the expected behavior, we continue to observe a Sun-facing anti-tail. This feature stretches roughly 60,000 kilometers, and in a recent paper, Dr. Loeb proposed that the teardrop-shaped coma seen in perihelion images of 3I Atlas may be caused by a collection of large, non-volatile fragments that broke away due to the object's measured non-gravitational acceleration away from the Sun. According to the paper, by November 30th, this swarm of fragments should be positioned about 60,000 kilometers closer to the Sun than 3I Atlas itself, assuming the fragments were aligned with the object during perihelion. This predicted separation matches perfectly with the sunward anti-tail seen in the new Hubble imagery. Another image visually unimpressive but scientifically valuable was captured by ESA's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, JUICE. On October 29th, the spacecraft used 5 scientific instruments to study 3I Atlas, collecting data on the composition and structure of its gas and dust plume. Most of this data won't reach Earth until February, since JUICE is currently using its high-gain antenna as a heat shield, relying on its smaller medium-gain antenna to transmit information at a much slower rate. Alongside these instruments, JUICE also photographed 3I Atlas with its onboard navigation camera, typically used for maneuvering around Jupiter's icy moons when the probe arrives in July 2031. ESA released a preliminary image made from just 1/4 of a single navcam frame. It reveals a glowing coma around 3I Atlas with faint indications of 2 tails. A correction is needed here. This image was actually taken on November 2nd, 2025, during JUICE's first observation run, 2 days before its closest pass on November 4th, at a distance of 66 million kilometers far, closer than Earth will ever be to this object. Data from JUICE's 5 scientific instruments will be released on February 18th and 2026, including high-resolution images from Janus, the spacecraft's optical camera, as well as spectrometry results. This means we'll soon have compositional data from several onboard instruments. Conveniently, this release will occur around the time 3I Atlas makes its close approach to Jupiter. Moving on, Sebastian Valter captured this next image, once again striking and notably green. Why does it appear greener than other photographs? Filters may play a role, but the color also aligns with its chemical makeup. A recent study using the Atacama Large Millimeter, Submillimeter Array, ALMA, detected methanol and hydrogen cyanide in 3I Atlas. These molecules are known to form on icy dust grains in frigid interstellar environments and serve as important precursors in complex organic chemistry, the kind that can lead to the origins of life. ALMA detected methanol near 3I Atlas on August 28th, September 18th and 22, and October 1st, as well as hydrogen cyanide on September 12th and 15. During these observations, the object's distance from the Sun ranged from 2.6 to 1.7 astronomical units. The production of hydrogen cyanide was found to be lower on the sunward side, while methanol production appeared stronger in that direction. Some of the methanol was generated directly within the gas plume at distances greater than 258 kilometers from 3I Atlas. whereas hydrogen cyanide was found to originate primarily from the nucleus. The methanol output increased sharply between August and October, and the methanol to hydrogen cyanide ratio, measured for 3I Atlas, is among the highest ever recorded for any comet, exceeded only by the extremely unusual comet C 2016 R2, one of the strangest comets ever observed. Even so, 3I Atlas, with its peculiar anti-tail, may be even more unusual. Methanol is abundant in star-forming regions. For example, in 2006, the Merlin radio array at Jodrell Bank Observatory discovered a massive methanol cloud near a newly formed star. In 2016, ALMA also detected methanol in a planet-forming disk around the young star TW Hydrae. Methanol serves as a precursor for amino acids and sugars, key components in the organic chemistry essential for life. Many microorganisms, such as bacteria and yeasts, can use methanol as their sole energy source, relying on specialized enzymes that oxidize methanol into formaldehyde, which is then converted into biomass or into useful chemicals such as amino acids. Methanol also forms naturally in plants as components of their cell walls, like pectin breakdown. As a gas, it can act as a signaling molecule, triggering defense responses in damaged plants and helping regulate their immunity against pathogens. Hydrogen cyanide, for its part, has been detected in Titan's atmosphere by 4 Cassini instruments, 1 Voyager instrument, and even from ground-based observations. The final set of images I'll discuss has generated considerable debate. They were recently analyzed by respected Thai astronomer Tirasak Talang, name possibly mispronounced. The images show a rotating 3I Atlas, but they also reveal odd fluctuations, brief bright flashes near or around the nucleus. Talang has interpreted these as possible objects accompanying 3I Atlas. Interestingly, these objects cannot be in orbit around 3I Atlas. Its gravity is far too weak to hold anything in a stable orbit. A more plausible explanation is that these may be fragments breaking away from the nucleus as 3I Atlas undergoes structural disruption. This is one of the leading theories for why the nucleus appears the way it does, and why we're seeing these unusual brightening effects. We still cannot clearly distinguish the nucleus itself because the coma obscures our view. Yet whatever we are observing appears to consist of small bodies, distinct, resolvable objects that must be enormous in size, likely 1 to 2 kilometers across, or potentially even larger. They seem to be clustering near, or possibly orbiting, the nucleus of 3I Atlas. But such an orbit should be impossible. An object as small as 3I Atlas doesn't have sufficient gravitational pull to hold anything in orbit, unless, hypothetically, it were a micro-black hole, or the objects were under some form of intelligent control. And since we're discussing authentic imagery, we also need to address the growing number of fabricated ones. Recently, several videos have circulated on YouTube featuring AI-generated versions of Avi Loeb saying things he never actually said. When these videos get removed, new ones quickly appear. If you come across any supposed Avi Loeb clips, be sure to verify his statements using his published writings. He documents nearly everything he proposes on Medium. If a claim cannot be confirmed there, it's almost certainly an AI fake, making serious research into 3I Atlas even harder. So why does NASA continue to ignore these anomalies? Why do they consistently fail to address features in these photos that are so strikingly inconsistent with known comet behavior details that should be obvious to anyone with even basic cometary science knowledge? At some point, you have to look at these images and ask, what is going on here? Why is the coma pointing the wrong way? Why does this enormous anti-tail exist if it's not an optical illusion? How could such things happen? I would gladly accept a natural explanation that genuinely makes sense. The recently suggested cryovolcanism model is at least an attempt to rationalize these observations. But the cryovolcanism we know from our own solar system, particularly on Enceladus, is driven by far more powerful forces, such as Saturn's intense gravitational pull. The tidal stresses there keep Enceladus's interior liquid, shifting its global subsurface ocean and producing violent eruptions through its icy crust. These eruptions are strong enough to form Saturn's E-ring. Those are immense forces at work, vastly stronger than the weak solar heating at nearly 2 astronomical units from the Sun. Saturn's gravity at Enceladus's orbit is far more extreme. So while violent cryovolcanic plumes make sense on Enceladus, it's far harder to accept something even more powerful occurring on a tiny object like 3I Atlas, which is only a few kilometers across and has far smaller reservoirs of water and internal energy. Its diameter is only about 6 to 10 kilometers at most, perhaps 20 in an extreme estimate compared to Enceladus, which spans hundreds of kilometers. So how could cryovolcanic eruptions on such a tiny object produce the kinds of phenomena we're seeing million-kilometer lances, projecting toward the sun and resisting the solar wind? How could mere solar heating generate something like that? It simply doesn't add up. And remember, we have never observed cryovolcanism on any comet within our solar system. Yes, an interstellar comet could be different, but even then, from a physics standpoint, this level of activity doesn't make sense. If 3I Atlas were a Centaur-like asteroid with a subsurface ocean or some internal reservoir of water being heated and venting through the surface, I could imagine eruptions occurring, but not with such extreme violence. That part still defies explanation. At the moment, the only interpretations that plausibly account for million-kilometer structures aim toward the sun, in direct opposition to the solar wind, not to mention a coma shaped the wrong way, forming a teardrop toward the sun instead of away from it, are artificial explanations. Still, I'm open to any natural explanation that truly fits the data as more research comes out. Humanity's scientific bias is perfectly illustrated by the cryovolcanism hypothesis currently circulating. The paper hasn't even passed peer review, yet mainstream scientific outlets are already promoting it widely. Why the rush? Because it offers a natural explanation. That's the only reason. In contrast, equally strong and in some ways more compelling hypotheses involving artificial propulsion, such as ion thrusters or even powerful chemical rockets, do explain the anti-solar lances. Papers proposing such mechanisms also exist, yet they never receive peer review or serious attention from major scientific publications. Why? Because of the same anthropocentric bias we discussed earlier. The prevailing belief is that extraordinary claims require impossible levels of evidence, especially if they imply that another civilization might possess technology equal to or more advanced than our own. Unless you can provide evidence 1,000 times stronger than what is required for a natural explanation, the idea is dismissed outright. The underlying attitude is, humans are special. Humans are technologically advanced. No one else could be. And I fear we may cling to this view for years, decades, perhaps even centuries, until the sun eventually scorches Earth into a lifeless world and humanity disappears forever. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and consider supporting the channel on Patreon. You'll gain access to early release content, exclusive material, our Discord server, and our merchandise returning just before Christmas. Thanks again, and until next time, stay angry about space.